Hey, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are, whoever you are. This is yours truly, the Grand Queen, coming at you tonight. Yeah, it might be 11:46 in New York. I don't know what time it is where you are. It could be 10:46. It could be the next day. But we're here with you tonight, and we welcome you to the Just Stop It show, where we focus on good mental health. We are the Just Stop It movement, and we are making it our business to make sure that you prioritize your your mental health and mental wellness. We're about that. Those are our priorities for the past few years. It is 2026 now. It is now 2026, and oh, it's not just like about a lot going on. It's about how to move forward. So yeah, and it's Black History Month, and happy Black History Month. Well, Black history is always ongoing, and it involves so many different people, not just Black people. We're talking about the experiences of Black people and history, not just past history, also making new history. So the Just Stop It Show, we're here to make new history. This is what it's about. And this month is not just Black History. It's this happens. We're talking about on the real divide, what we experience on a day to day basis, year to year, month to month, and we all experience grief. We just want to bring awareness to Black grief. And I hear somebody probably saying, Black grief? Really? Yes, Black grief, the real divide. And we want to talk about the real tip, the real deal on how Black people experience grief. We all experience it differently, individually. We want to talk about collectively and what is some of the support that we have to be able to pass through and get through grief. And there's no timeline for healing. There's no you don't punch in the clock. I mean, like it's different every day. It's bittersweet. It's it's high. It's very intense grief, and it's so many different levels of grief, not just the decease or the loss of a loved one. It could be a divorce. It could be uh, a child that is passing through mental illness, and the process. It could be a loved one passing through mental illness, and the process that, and especially among the Black community, especially if they're experiencing it as a Black person, as a Black individual, and the community gap, the communication gap between the medical team and the Black community is just wow. So we're here to bridge that gap, even across generations. We're here to help families across generations to bridge the gap between them and the medical profession. How the medical professionals communicate to them, communicate with them when their loved one is passing through mental illness or mental health issues. Families need support. Grief at any level, you need support, and you cannot do it alone. It's too hard to do it alone. We recently lost our family, a family member, three sisters, three girls, and now there are two. And my sister, it's just we're still trying to wrap our brain around it, but our heart is having a challenging time wrapping our brain around the separation of our loved one. I call her Renee because her godson calls her Renee, but her name is Stephanie. Her godson, we call her, when we're talking about specific things, because that's her middle name, Renee. But the way Rickley says it, shout out to Rickley. a godson. Um, he calls me auntie. Shout out to you, Rickley. Renee, and I look at her card from the funeral and things like that, and I just, well, it's a new day, Renee. God gifts us to each other, and when the time comes, we don't know what we're going to do. We don't know what we're going to say. We don't know how we're going to react when grief happens at any level. It's the support and it's the tools that we have to be able to integrate it into our lives. Because once we, and I talked about this the last time, a couple of weeks ago, we have to learn to, if we can, one day at a time, one space at a time, one increasingly painful moment at a time. We are learning to integrate grief into our lives. Not to say that we are in we are in acceptance of it. We just It just weaves into our life because it's like a rite of passage, and then God helps us to deal with it through the tools and the people, and the location and the agencies that help us to understand the real divide of Black grief. So yeah, and just want to take a moment with you guys today. So again, family, this is yours truly, the Grand Queen, coming at you today at the Think Life Show, where we're talking about Black grief, the real divide, the real deal. What creates. How do we deal with grief? And in some families and communities, grief is a constant. Grief is the experience, as you can see across the ticker. Grief in Black communities, Black Americans experience death earlier and more often than white Americans. This creates a heavier and more frequent grief burden. So I just want to just give you a little vibe, take you a little further, because again, grief has no timeline. And we're going to take our time tonight. So before we get into this podcast tonight, I just want to anchor us in the word and the scripture, just vibe with you a little bit for a moment. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." You know, like I said, the death of a loved one, a divorce, um, even like being fired from a job you've been loyal to like forever. That is a, is a is an experience, because you're separated from something. You're being severed from something that is not just a part of your livelihood, but you've built a community with that. You've built a connection with that, with the workplace and the people. So yeah, to be severed from something and someone is like a death, like no other, because it's a rite of passage. So this scripture, Psalm 34 and 18, reminds us that when access is limited, sometimes access in our voice, being able to speak our grief, being able to speak our hurt, our pain, is limited. Even when resources are is limited, because resources are limited, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. It doesn't mean those resources cannot be found. They can be found even when the system fails us, and we cannot depend on a system, because Black people are continually suffer systemic racism. So grief is no different, for us. It's just that the tools that we need to be able to live, at best, and understand that we must do more than survive. We must live and be our best, and the become and just move and have a sound mind. It's about soundness, our mental health, emotionally. And just let me just bring some awareness to you. Since this is Black History Month, we are grounded. We're always grounded. Here's in history, actually, valid information. So yeah, so let's look at what the research talks about grief in the Black community. How it interacts with Black history and how it interacts with making new history. So yeah, some of the key stats talk about high morality, high mortality, not morality, high mortality rates, more frequent griefs. I mean, like, yeah, because if somebody's family member hasn't been shot or stabbed to death or just abused, physically abused, domestic violence, the person that had died by domestic violence, and the word stabbed, we want to use unalived and of the sort. This is social media. Um, this creates a heavier, more frequent grief burden among the Black community, among intergenerational households, families, and just period across America, across the globe. It really creates an emotional burden among us when it comes to grief and more because of the variables that it's linked to. So, yeah, Black Americans have an average lifespan of 78 years. Well, it can be more because I know some people. Our grandmother, whose birthday is today, Grandma Addie the Queen, she lived to almost to be 100, as they would say, 100 years old. She was 90 something when she passed, close to 100. Let me tell you something. Her dad lived 100. I believe her father lived to be like 101. So longevity, you know, it may hit and miss and throughout the black generations, across generations among black people, but it doesn't mean that they don't have it doesn't mean that they don't stand a chance to live well and live long. It's not just living long, it's living well and living long at best. So um, the lifespan of black people is 78 years, which is 6 years shorter than white Americans. Now, we got to make new history, people. We have to make new history, family. According to the University of Arizona News, um, we are twice as likely to die of heart disease. We don't have to accept these stats. This is why we've got to make new history. We do not have to accept these stats. We thank goodness for valid information, which changes, and we here to change that. So we had to change the stats that we are twice as likely to have heart disease. We want to just quell that whole thing and high blood pressure. Duh. And over the last 2 decades, there have been 1.63 million excess deaths among Black Americans compared to white Americans, according to the Dougie Center. Please go to the Dougie Center. That is a phenomenal, that is an amazing site full of vital information, state of the art information for Black people. Please go to that site, and I will be sharing some article information, and you'll be able to see it on YouTube at JTire Forum 1. You'll be able to use that as a source of information to help change and make new history on the key stats of grief in Black communities and in your family, our families, um, the world over, locally and globally. That's what it's about. So this means that Black families experience more loss across the lifespan. Again, we are about changing this across the lifespan from childhood, and I have to say from conception. From conception, there's a fight for the Black life. I'm just saying, from conception, carrying a child, birthing a child, um, it's like a war that goes on for the life of our Black children, our Black families. So, because also physical and mental health effects of grief. You want to be able to understand the measurable biological impacts and the effects that intensify the loss. What's the problem? What is the cause of these of the loss? Why are these stats so high? 78, you live in 78. No change, it lived to 108 and more. What are the short term and long term effects of grief? Again, I mentioned high blood pressure, um, increased inflammation, inflammatory diseases, lower immunity, according to the University of Arizona News. That those are the short-term effects. The long-term effects: cardiovascular problems, sleep disturbances like sleep apnea, unhealthy coping behaviors, just angry birds all the time, or imbalances in the brain, eating unhealthy foods such as ultra processed foods, also not understanding also vital information pertaining to microplastics that's in the food and the clothes. Do your due process. Find out what you're wearing, what you're eating, and how it affects your mental health, how it affects your brain, how it affects your skin, and things like that. And, and approach life better. Help us, help us. And according to these are the long-term effects according to the University of Arizona News. So, because Black Americans experience more cumulative, now that part, loss, these health effects compound over time, meaning, it's like a vicious cycle over and over again. However, the good news is we can weather stormy weather. We can weather this. This is a storm that has been brewing over our lives from generation to generation, but we can weather this. However, the divide is the compounded stress of racism and grief. That is the divide. The repeated loss contributing to the weathering process. The repeated loss, the concept of weathering, coined by Arlene Giorimas, describes how chronic exposure to racism and socioeconomic disadvantage accelerates aging and health decline. In other words, this creates repeated loss and Black Americans who lose loved ones at every age group compared to white Americans is a snowball effect, meaning more loss, more stress, more health decline, more loss. I mean, it's more loss from the beginning to the end, straight from the gate. More loss associated with more stress, associated with more health decline. Back to what? More loss. Let's kill that. There it is. Unalive. Let's unalive that. Let's literally use the tools. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but are mighty to the pulling down of strongholds. These are strongholds that society has created. These are strongholds that have been throughout and have happened and been there throughout history. This is historical. Uh, this has been compounded historically, and it's time to stop it. It's time to just stop it. This is what we are about here, to just stop it with the right tools uh, to create the gift of good mental health. Create it, embrace it as good mental health is a gift, and it is. It's attached to our spiritual self. It's connected to our political powers. It's connected to our spiritual powers, our financial powers. It is connected. So the thing is, it's also collectively rooted, systemically rooted in history. This is Black History Month. And Black history is, for us, is every day in my mind, because we go through different changes, and we should be making sure that these things do not happen again. However, it must be a collective, it must be collaborated, it must be collaborated. It must be a collaboration and collaboration. ongoing. It should be ongoing. So just promoting and I'm promoting the ability to heal, to understand the short-term and long-term effects of grief, and to do something about it. Just stop it. It's going to take some time. That's okay because that's how it is. As long as we become accountable and do something, not just anything, do it, do it well. Strong, strong effort. Make a collective effort to reinforce the things that make it right, the things that make it happen. So, here's again another stat alert. Only 1 in 3 Black adults who need mental health care actually receive it. Somebody's like probably saying, what does grief have to do with mental health? A whole lot, because you're talking about weathering the stress that's connected to grief and mental health, the emotions. What is stress is like one of the number one issues in every person's life. It doesn't matter whether you're Black, Anglo, whether you're Hispanic, it doesn't matter. Asian, stress is a number one culprit, a number one enemy. And what it's linked to, if it's linked to it, domestic, we're talking about variables, domestic violence, domestic abuse, um, uh, think trauma, PTSD, illnesses, when all those things come together, oh my God, grief itself, oh, and then among the Black community, among people of color as well, it is, my God, it's more than a lot. It has to stop. It's not that you cannot stop grief from happening. I'm not saying that. And also as a reminder, family, this is not a medical advisory board. This is a support to help you understand what it is that you need to do with your mental health, to make sure you prioritize good mental health, to make sure you have resources and sources of information to improve your ongoing life, to make it phenomenal. This is about you, me, he, she, we, they, it. This is it, right? So, again, 1 in 3 Black people, that's not good. It should be, oh, we got to raise the bar on everything. We don't need to try harder. We need to just work smarter. That work harder concept, right? So, we're just here breaking down the grief burden, the history, and the community heroes fighting to close the gap. We're all heroes in a way. Some of us don't want to be. Some of us are probably like, oh, please, I don't want to be no hero. I don't want to be no shero. I don't want to be none of that. But that's okay. We're here to help each other. That's the bottom line. We are here. We have been gifted to each other. And once we accept that we have been gifted to each other, we'll be able to get through it, get to it, get with it better than we think that we can, better than ever. Right? So, you know, one more thing. One more thing. Um, the barriers. I talked about the barriers, grief history, systemic barriers, local initiatives, programs. They need to really step up a little bit more. I mean, not to say that they're not trying, but we're talking about simple solutions, local solutions, mobile clinics. We need more mobile clinics for good mental health. We need more mobile grief clinics uh, to address, you know, our our communities. We need more telehealth expansions. There are very few psychotherapists per county in the state of New York, particularly in rural areas. There's more in the city, but in rural areas, the stats is it's like 1 out of 3. Um, the also community-based organizations in there's more in the city versus rural areas. Black-led mental health collectives and HBCU training programs. We need that. We need that. It should be we are looking to increase the numbers so that Black resilience can be where it's supposed to be. Black resilience is real, right? And also, mental health access is essential. Black grief is real. Black grief is real. Black resilience is equally real. And mental health access is essential. So, yeah, um, remember, we all remember George Floyd. We all remember that, right? We all remember the loss of George Floyd, should I say George Floyd, and how it that situation was tied to violence, right? So, and it happens every day. However, we cannot take it so lightly just because it happens all the time. It doesn't mean we cannot just stop it, slow it down. Some things you can't stop, but you can slow it down until eventually it will stop. So, that would help to lessen the stress and racism by being vigilant. You must become vigilant. Also, a collective grief is also, I talked about that earlier, collectively, working together collectively. A collective grief is often understudied, but it is central to understanding Black bereavement. And that's from the University of Arizona News. Historical trauma and kinship networks amplify grief when publicized deaths occur. It's happening all the time in the news. You see it. I believe sometimes when it becomes too publicized, it doesn't give people a chance to heal. It doesn't give people a chance to find resolve. It just brings more pain to the family and the community. It's just like it's happening to them over and over again because sometimes the public, the media, is just overstimulating it. They're just, whoa, it's like somebody, I don't know. It's too much. It's just too much. It's like somebody tasing you with this information, and they're not bringing the result. They're not offering any solutions. They just keep ragging on the story, and you just, God, your brain and your mind and your heart. It's like, how much more can I take? So there should be some support. Disenfranchised grief, unrecognized grief, minimized and unsupported due to racism. So again, they only go to the DougieCenter.com, and where you'll be able to read the article on the realities of Black grief. It is, oh my God, it'll blow your mind. I mean, we all go through individually, but we're talking about tools, some of the things that need to stimulate our brain and our mind and the sources of information where we have hands-on sources and tools to be able to fight a good fight against grief and racism and what comes with that. And why does this matter? Because it happens too often and it's intense. It's more collective, more connected to historical and systemic forces. Those are the demons, people. Those are the demons, family. So it's not just an individual loss. So, what's happened to our family, what's happened to my family, your family, is not just an individual loss. It's about the ongoing impact it had, and has of Black history, the ongoing impact of Black history, racial trauma, and structural inequality. Some people are afraid to go to the doctor, or when they go to the doctor, maybe they don't feel the vibes that they need, or they don't have the support, not just feeling, they don't have the support as a Black person or as a person of color when he or she, the doctors or the medical team, is speaking with them, translating the information. Sometimes the information could be like equally overwhelming, because like the doctors is like the corporation talk to another corporation. They are transferring information from within to you. And then not just transferring, but transforming. It's a transformational thing. That information is supposed to transform your life, help you to be better and get better at life, and be better in life, physically, socially, mentally, spiritually. All of that is connected. So the divide is, again, it's too frequent and intense, and it spills over into the family, and it spills over into not just the family, of generation to generation, intergenerational impact. So again, think about the inequality and how it's attached to Black history, and make new history, family. I'm encouraging you to make new history. I just wanted to connect you. Um, I just wanted to just help us make a better connection among ourselves, so that we can understand that the divide is real, just as real as Black grief, and close the gap, bridge the gap and close it, and make new bridges for us to cross over into a new mindset, a new heart, a new way of thinking, a new way of living. That's what Christ's message was about. Progressive, living a new life, living a better, the best life. That's what it's about. So the call to action, family, is again to bridge the divide, and to advocate. That's what I'm about. Advocating. We are advocators in so many ways. Um, Advocate for what? Resources in your community. Advocate for resources in your family. Healing starts with awareness, and it grows with action. It starts, but it's got to start someplace with a conversation. It cannot be forced, because grief wasn't forced on you, but it happens. So as it, maybe some people feels like, maybe some people feel like grief was forced on them. Maybe they do. What am I saying? I can't say how people feel. Maybe they do feel like grief was just forced on them, like it just pounced on them just like that, because stuff happens so suddenly. It does feel like, wow, I didn't sign up for this. And you get angry. You have so many mixed emotions. You're angry. You're hurt. You're bitter. You're confused. It's you're just looking for closure in the time of grief. You just want closure and peace. Those two are just like, I'm telling you, it's like gold. It's like a portfolio. It's like a good portfolio. So as we close today, family, I just want to leave you with Isaiah 41 and 10. Don't fear. The I am that I am, meaning the agencies that God has chosen, the location and the people that God has chosen for you, on your behalf, because you are in his best interest. We are in his best interest. So the best. must be given to us. Even though you're experiencing the worst must happen so the best can happen. Don't worry about it. Don't be, it's easy to say, don't worry about it. It's easy to say, don't fear. God will give you tools to remove and absorb those fears and absorb those tears because He's with you. It's just how to get your attention, it's just how to heal the wounds, to help you to stand, to help you to position yourself to see what He's talking about. That's all. This is how simple we are made. We have to be positioned to see things. We have to be positioned with the right perception so that we can develop and move forward. If we are not, if our perception is warped, we can't move. We can't do anything. But the perception must be clear. And we move little by little, baby steps until toddler steps, until we become a full adult, full responsible, fully responsible, fully Jesus in the situation, collectively, individually, locally, globally. And as a community, no matter what, no matter where you live, rural, urban, countryside, city, in the country, out of the country, it doesn't matter, family. God's strength reaches you, and He does it individually. He does it in a unique way because you are unique. There's no one size fits all. And that's the good news. So, healing is not a solo trip, family. Healing is not a solo trip. Although, when you get behind those walls, my grandmother used to tell me, don't let the devil tear you up. When you get behind those closed doors, behind those walls, and and the devil could be in the form of standards, people, the things, their belief system, and how they live and how they transfer it to you. Those are devilish things that bring down your perception, that warps your perception, that makes your life full of toxins, and the divide happens. With God, you can divide and conquer. I'm just saying, family. So here we are, and just say this to yourself. For those of you who are listening to the sound of my voice, and again, this is the Grand Queen at the Think Life Show tonight, coming at you. Good evening, good morning, good night, good afternoon, wherever you are, whoever you are. Speak this over yourself. I want to leave this with you for the week. And please go to J Tire Forum 1, like and subscribe about this video about Black grief. Share some valid information. Again, go to Dougie.com where Black grief Black grief awareness is on that site, and it will help you in your community, in your family. These things, if you are experiencing grief at any level, please check that out. And for your week, today is Thursday here, and I just want to give you a glimmer of hope, share with you a glimmer of hope. Speak this over yourself. Speak this over you. I deserve healing. I deserve support. I deserve access. Access to everything you need and want. Because once you find out you need it, you'll want it. You gotta want it. Once you find out this is and it's accessible, God will open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing that is blessings, because it ain't no one shot deal with Him. There's no one shot deal with our Father God. Not Abba, Papa Daddy. Nope, no, He doesn't play that. And he doesn't wait till, okay, he's gonna bless somebody over here and they gotta wait to bless. No. It's all in one hit. And that hit is over and over again, which the enemy of all enemies of this life, the enemies of the cross, do not like that. So yes, it's a struggle, but that struggle will turn into you being like the most amazing advocate for yourself and others. Your strength, those struggles will turn into strengths of reinforcement, love, and a sound mind. That's what it's about. And it's okay if you don't feel like if your headspace is all over the place. It's okay because that's how I've been feeling. Like my headspace is just like everywhere in the grief of this grief period of my sister. And I'm not the only one. My family, I love my family. I love you guys. I love y'all so much, and I love my extended family, the friends and people that have come into my life. Victor, I love you, my guy. He's amazing. Um, Ann, I call her my daughter, neighbor. I love you, Ann. You and Ted, her husband Ted. I just have to just give that shout out to folks who just they are phenomenal, and they really help me to to stand to because again God positions us to be able to get through these periods. Um, Even domestic abuse or just domestic abuse is another thing that mm, it's just when you're passing through a combination of things, it all feels like one big ocean of grief happening to you at the same time. And I want to share that story with you. I spoke with you over the past 3 years, I believe, about narcissism and narcissistic relationships. And I'm going to share with you on the sources of support and the difference on the aging narcissist. It's different, and it's more harmfully damaging. It's more harmfully dangerous than aging narcissists compared to it's all bad. It's all dangerous and harmful, no matter how old a narcissist is. It's just I want to share the grooming tactics and the stonewalling and the gray, should I say, the gray rocking and the mirroring that the aging narcissist does, and when it begins to lose its source of energy, because you are their source of energy. It's like Satan himself, and God himself shows up with the greatest support of all time to get you up out of that Maya. As Jeremiah said, God delivered him out of the muck and the Maya, because the government didn't want him to speak the truth. So they threw him in the they threw him in the piss pot, threw him in the toilet. I'm just saying, he was in the toilet, So sometimes we in the toilet of life, but it's not to say that God will not deliver you from that kind of grief. And that's another time. This and again, so please, you deserve healing, support, and access. You are not alone. Keep that in mind, ongoing, forthgoing, not just for the month of February. This is ongoing. Your healing is ongoing. And as frequent as grief happens, um, let's shorten it. Let's make sure. Let's begin to work towards, shortening those periods of grief or getting resources to get through it and understanding how to remove the effects of grief of any kind. So I bless you and I pray that you feel God's closeness in your grief. And I pray that God's strength strengthens you in your struggle. And I pray that God brings peace so that you'll no longer live in pieces. And I pray that our communities come together and those who have been coming together, that they continue to rise together with compassion, courage, and care and share. And I pray that Black led mental health becomes a collective, more and more of a collective. And I also pray that HBCU, that there's more HBCU training programs. And I pray that you create your own call to action among your local community. And if today's episode speaks volume to you, it not just speak to you. We've got to, things have to speak volume to us. It must speak um, and trigger action in our lives. So I pray today that it triggered you to act and share it with somebody who needs it and support Black mental health organizations. Advocate for resources in your community and your family. And most importantly, check in on you. We need you. So check in on yourself. Healing starts with awareness and it grows with action. Peace, love, and joy. And I'll be back with you on the next Just Stop It episode. Stay tuned.